Hi. So in relation to our previous demonstration video here, we covered up the part of a CVM, Creata virtual machine, and the non-CVM, the non-Creata virtual machine. One which has smart contract capability and the other which didn't have the smart capability. And we explore those chains and how they work around, and when we explore the smart contract platforms and tool. So in relation to that previous demonstration that we had, we will cover up the next part of our next topic, or more like our next MVP, or DApp, or prototype, which would basically include a part of our most important feature in the blockchain, which is interoperability. And within that interoperability, we will cover up the first part, which is regarded as inter-blockchain communication through ICP, which is our Intercom protocol. Before we jump into how this works, or more like how DApp actually provides that capability, or how our prototype provides that capability, we'll try to understand some of the important concepts that are involved behind this whole feature. So the first thing is, within Creatachain, our consensus algorithm, which is basically Augustium, includes multiple channels or concepts or foundations through which multiple steps are carried out. Now, in order to, if we explore that area, one of the most important part is ICP, which is our Intercom protocol. Now, this protocol is very important in terms of whenever we are trying to carry out inter-blockchain communication. So now, you can also, after this video, as a reference, you can look into the light paper. And I believe it's page number 16 and 15, which are covering 15 and 16, which are covering the part of ICP. So what actually is ICP? Or what actually is inter-blockchain communication? Or cross-blockchain communication? Now, here in Creatachain, we have defined those two as inter-blockchain communication means that the chains that are powered through Augustium consensus, because Augustium consensus, or the greater network platform, provides the capability or ability to create any number of blockchains, or any independent number of blockchains, or any application-specific blockchain for any kind of a use case, whether it's public, whether it's private, whether it's permission. So the other question arises that if the system is giving the capability to create independent number of blockchains or application-specific blockchain, then how can they interconnect with one another? Or the other question comes in like, for example, when the systems are running for quite long, or there are different platforms A and B, they have their own independent blockchain. In future, they try to carry out communication with one another. Now, they will need to think about whether this capability is available or not, or whether this ability is possible or not, or whether they can do that. Now, we have covered up that part through inter-blockchain communication. Now, our Intercom protocol is like a mechanism where data from one chain can be transferred to another chain. Now, this is very important because as an industry or the blockchain community, we say that the number of blockchains lack with that capability, and due to which the business or the product owners have to decide very carefully when launching the product or even after launching the product. Sometimes, obviously, when we move with the technology, there are a number of advancements and innovations, and with innovations, we have to grow the platform and the technology. Now, those technologies lack this kind of capability. Now, Creatachain overcomes that in terms by providing interoperability and still maintaining security and scalability. Now, when we're talking about that, here, as I said, that if there are multiple blockchains that are running with consensus algorithm, which is Augustium, then they can. Now, what is the benefit? Now, there is no usage of having any central service. Now, we need to keep it, or keep everything on a distributed ledger, or we need to keep everything on blockchain directly. We don't want to go offline or carry out any off-chain communication. So in order to do that, our ICP mechanism or our Intercom protocol provides that capability. Here also, if you need to learn more, you can learn as well, where we have a concept of arc chains and sub-arc chains, which are basically regarding as an asset transfer mechanism, an asset conversion mechanism. And they provide, they give the trust level to the consensus, where messages or packets which contain the proofs of transaction carry out their headers or carry out their message to different blockchains through ICP, which are running, and they tell them that certain proof or certain transaction has been insured or has been reserved or is going to be carried out. Then Creatachains get ready, and the Intercom protocol overlooks whether the chains are ready or not, whether the systems are ready or not, whether the transaction or the coins are minted or not, or reserved or not. Then in the case, we can get the interchain transfer. Now this is interchain transfer. So the difference is within interchain transfer, or we can say inter-blockchain communication or inter-blockchain communication. The difference is that within this concept, the chains are running through consensus algorithm of Creatachain, which is Augustium. Now, this is the first part of interoperability. Now, what is the second concept of interoperability? The second concept is cross-chain communication. Now, cross-chain communication is a bit sophisticated method in terms of data transfer and communication. Because within the cross-chain communication, we have now two different consensus algorithms. Or one is the Augustium, of course, and the other ones can be anyone. Whether, as in our diagram here, we can see that there is a Bitcoin and then we have Ethereum. Now, in the industry, as we see, that is not possible, at least for now. And sometimes, obviously, interchain is not possible, but most of the communities or the blockchains are ensuring that through a layer 2 mechanism. And within that layer 2 mechanism, there are multiple steps, and obviously they come out with the risk of line mechanism. Now, here in Creatachain, we have different concepts. We use the concept of arc chain. Now, arc chain acts as an on-chain communication method powered through interchain protocol. And through this communication, whenever the data is being transferred between the chains, like for example, if someone wants to send some Bitcoin to some sub-arc chain 1, then what they need to do is just carry out the transfer. The arc chain will look out, because the arc chain is more like a distributed ledger, and it will look out for the communication or any kind of an update in the ledger. And whenever the ledger is updated, the ICP protocol will overlook that and communicate that message to the sub-arc chain. That's how cross-chain communication works. So that it is the concept of inter-blockchain communication. Now we will cover up our first part, which is inter-blockchain communication. And here we can see a very simple step-by-step method where we can understand how this works. And so for the first step is sub-arc chain. Now the receiving chain, so for the sake of simplicity, I will use the term of source chain and receiving chain. And now the receiving chain is the one which is going to receive the assets. Now the receiving chain will be highlighted or will be informed by the chain 1, or we can say source chain. It will be highlighted that we are going to send some assets to you. Now sub-arc chain 2 or receiving chain will get ready for that, and we will, you can say, reserve the specific messages for that. Now, the second step is where the transaction will actually occur. Now, as the transaction is occurring from sub-arc chain 1, which is source chain, to the sub-arc chain 2, which is basically more like our receiver chain. So here, as soon as the transaction is carried out, the assets will be reserved in the background within the ledger, and that proof will be given into the third step, where the receiver chain is being highlighted that the transaction is going to be initiated. The assets are being reserved and the transaction has been successfully proved by the consensus algorithm. Now, as soon as it is done, the fourth step comes in, which is the final step. Here, the chain or our receiver chain will mint the coins. That will mint the number of coins, which at this step, 10 tokens. We'll mint the 10 tokens and we will carry out the transfer to the specific address. So in the simplest way, chain 1 is sending the assets to chain 2, and within that methodology, chain 1 will reserve or lock that asset, and the chain 2 will maintain those assets, and within that, the whole ledger is being updated. Now, there is no layer 2 mechanisms involved. Now, there is no, you can see, any offline mechanism involved. This is all being done directly on ledger level. And more like, you can say ICP here, which is basically our Intercom protocol, is acting more like a ledger mechanism or a relayer mechanism on transferring our updating the assets or reserving the assets. So this is how whole communication between ARC chain and sub-ARC chain via the ICP protocol is being carried out. So this is the concept. Now, here I have opened up the consoles of two nodes for the sake of simplicity. I will be using one CVM powered chain and one non-CVM powered chain. Now, both of these chains are our power through Augustine consensus algorithm. The difference is that one includes the capability of smart contract and the other one doesn't include that. So CVM, what is CVM? As we all have already covered that, it is a Creata virtual machine which allows the ability for the creator chain developers or the business owners to create any kind of a smart contract and launch their dApp on the go. So here we can see this is our blockchain node 1, which is CVM on my left side, and on the right side this is non-CVM node running in the background for our prototype, for our MVP platform. So now we will jump into our platform. So this is a quite simple platform which has the ability to see balance, the check balance, and carry out the transaction as we get started with the step. Obviously, this is running internally at this step. This is not being made public at this point, which we will be launching and we will be announcing in the coming future as we finalize our mainnet release, or we can say public testnet release. So it's more like a DevNet release. So I have some demo addresses, which are test addresses, which I'll be utilizing. We will first of all check out the balance on these addresses. So I will just call a check balance. As I can see, there are some ICP, 0.9 ICP, and I have some 9 CTA on my hex address. I'll also check out the balance. Obviously now this hex address is basically the address existing on CVM blockchain, which is our left-hand side console node. And the Creata back address is our non-CVM address. And this address or this wallet has assets existing on our non-CVM node, which is on our right side of console. So I'll check the balance on this as well. So I can see I have 0 ICP and I have 8.9 CTA here. So these are my current balance. Now what I will try to do is try to carry out the transaction from our CVM address to our non-CVM. From CVM blockchain to our non-CVM blockchain, which means what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to carry out the transaction from this blockchain 1 to this blockchain 2. And both of these blockchains have different standards. Both of these blockchains have their own different application mechanisms. So as we learn that Creatachain allows you to create application-specific blockchain. So one blockchain is CVM specific, and the other blockchain is non-CVM specific. So what I will do is just select how I want to carry out the transaction. So I'm carrying out the transition starting from CVM to non-CVM. I'll go out next step. Here I will just put on my mnemonic address, or you can say I will configure my wallet here. I have just configured my wallet. Obviously, this is just the prototype, and these are test wallets, so they have no usage there. So that's why they are open here, and we get the ability to obviously put our mnemonic. So obviously there are some writer notes as well. Here we can see if we can get any help. So what is the source account? What is the recipient account? So obviously, as the name suggests, source account is the one from which the transaction is going to carry out, and the recipient address is the one which is going to receive assets. So what that means is this node 1 blockchain, or node 1 blockchain 1 is our source node, or source blockchain, and this node 1 of a blockchain 2, or you can say node 2 or blockchain 2, and it is the receiver blockchain. So what I'm going to do is just try to put out address, which I have a dummy address as we saw the balance there. I will initiate the transaction. Now I have an option, whether I want to try to send ICP, whether I want to try CTA. Now the question comes, what is ICP and what is CTA? Now, as for that, we need to go through the white paper, obviously the technical specification. Obviously, this is more like a prototype and MVP mechanism exploring the technical side. So that's why, for the sake of convenience, these two are kept separate. Obviously, in the live public versions, there are going to be a different mechanisms there, or you can say for the ease of usage. So here, as the name suggests, ICP, as you know, is working out as a represent free token, or more like a reserved token, or a representation of a transaction in our Intercom protocol. So that's why the names are kept. So CTA are the main assets, primary assets, existing on each different blockchain separately, and ICP are just a way to ensure that certain transfer is carried out, which means that as we saw, that 10 tokens were going to be sent from chain 1 to chain 2. So that's why 10 tokens are going to be reserved on chain 1. 10 tokens are going to be minted in the form of ICP on the chain 2. So as a way of, you can say, communication channel. So now, as I can see, I have 0.9 ICP available, and I have around 9 CTA available. What I'll try to do is try to send out CTA because as these are tests, I have carried out some communication previously as well. So what I will do, I'll transfer some more like 5 CTA from our CVM chain to our non-CVM chain. So here I have some steps involved and I will verify. So before we do that, we see here, this is our blockchain. And here we can see the transfer is being initiated. And here we can see that this chain has been receiving the communication messages from this blockchain. Now, there is no central party involved. This is directly on blockchain level. We can see logs here. Obviously, the developers are going to understand that these logs, and we can see minted coins, and we can see all the, you can say, messages that are occurring within the blockchain. So this receiver chain, as soon as you know, this communication has been carried out, as we said, that it is with ensuring the capability. So this is done within a matter of seconds. So even in the interoperability, we are ensuring the high scalability as well, which is obviously impossible in the community at this stage. As within the blockchain, single blockchain, this is easy, but when we talk about different blockchains communicating together, then obviously some bottleneck comes in, but we have covered up that through our ICP and ArcChain concept. So this is where the communication is carried out. So as we saw that messages were being transferred, or packets of messages were being transferred from this chain, which is our node 1 CVM, to our non-CVM chain. So that's how the messages occurred, and we can also see the transaction hashes there, and the product chain ensure the transaction. What I will do is try to find out the balance. As we know, we carried out the transaction from our CVM machine to non-CVM, and it was around, I believe, 5 CTA. So first of all, I'll try to find my balance on source machine. So as we see, we had previously 9 CTA, and now there are only 4 left. Similarly now, I'll try to find out the balance of our non-CVM machine. Non-CVM address, what happened there, whether it received or not, so I'll try to find out. So here previously we had 0 ICP there, because no interchain transfers were carried out, and now we have 5 ICP. So that's how we can see that it's properly working and there are no issues. Now let's try to send ICP or try to send back our CTA. Now the usage here is that if we have 2 different blockchains, if one has sent the CTA from one blockchain to another, now, obviously, in the future, maybe he wants to get them back to his previous chain, whether there could be any reason, so the user can do anything they want. In order to ensure the both-way communication is fine, communication on both way is working fine, we move into the step where we are transferring non-CVM assets to the CVM chain. So here again, I'll put down my private key here. Now I have seen my wallet address is written in there. I'll try to put on my hex address. Now this hex address is there. As we can see, I have 5 ICP on our 5 ICP and 8.9 and CTA on source chain. And now the source chain is on my right-hand side. The console shows the source machine, which is a source blockchain, which is non-CVM blockchain. I'll just create the transaction. I'll try to send ICP. I want to send, for example, let's just say I want to send 4 ICP for the sake of convenience. There we have transaction summary, just to be sure we are trying or we are doing what we want. I'll click on send. I will see the messages. So we saw that initially the logs came in. So we have the fungible transfer here. Here we can see the receiver chain is verifying that whether the transaction is being sent or not. So as soon as we have received the acknowledgement, I will see the transaction being done. So this just happened within that. So now this capability doesn't mean that there is any kind of a restriction here. Both ways are allowed and the whole system is working fine at the moment, as we can see. Now I'll just try to find out the balance on source machine. Now the source chain is, as we saw, as we explained, that is a CVM. In CVM, we have experiment of addresses for meeting the community standards, of course. So we'll try to find out the balance. And here we saw that our CTA, we've sent out the 4 ICP and now we have our CTA back. Similarly, I'll try to find out my balance on non-CVM chain. So I will just click on that. I've seen I have 1 ICP left and see the other what day. So this is basically how our Intercom protocol works. Our interoperability is being ensured while carrying out our interchain communication. So this is how our interoperability is working. And at this stage, the results are successful, the transactions are successful. Even the tests that the team has been executing, they are working quite perfectly. Now we are in the stage of moving towards the public testnet release because we follow a mechanism where we have our devnet release, where we have our public testnet release, and then we have our public mainnet release. So at this point, we are more closer toward the public testnet release. And now the benefit or what this release means for the future of Creatachain. Now this release doesn't only fits for the communication for the future of Creatachain, but it's very important for the future of blockchain industry because this concept, this release, this mechanism removes the hurdle of interchain transfer through layer 2 mechanism or offline mechanism. So what we are doing or what we're releasing here is giving the ability to the developers, to the business owners, product owners, and to every community members to use the blockchain as a means of full decentralization without the risk of having an offline mechanism involved while you are trying to communicate between multiple blockchains. So obviously this is beneficial for the whole community as we're seeing. So this innovation is going to empower the platform a lot. And obviously, as soon as we jump into the platform in the set where we are going to have our interchain dApp, as this is just an MVP. So obviously, we're going to have a public release of dApp within that. And this feature is going to be integrated within the whole ecosystem of Creatachain, which means our OS, our mobile wallet, our extensions, and everywhere. This will be integrated. So this is going to help us out, and will give the ability to help the community to use the platform at its maximum level. So hopefully this demonstration video was informative. And if any of the viewer have any question or any kind of confusion or further explanation, or a detailed explanation that is required, we are here to help you out. So we'll be waiting for your response. Thank you very much. And obviously, before leaving, just to give a quick update on that, we will soon be releasing the further, because as this is the more like a 5th or 6th section of our demonstration or explanatory videos or a workshop. So we will cover up the part of workshop 2 as well, because we have quite a gap there. And we will share the demonstration with you guys soon as well. So take care. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.